All right, we're live. All right, if you're just kind of getting back into this now, I'm so sorry for the delay. But yeah, I could see that the frame rate was just it was a slideshow that's supposed to be a video, but not just the slideshow that Andrew's showing, but like just the actual video stream itself is basically at that speed. So that I tried to restart it. Unfortunately, still getting used to this stuff. Sorry for all these problems. That said, I'm going to immediately just go ahead and hand it back over to Andrew so he can finish up his presentation. So Andrew, it's all yours.
All right, yeah, sharing on the screen. Yeah, so what I was saying earlier was about, like, I was talking about the AWS serverless Java container, and I was saying how it gives you the ability to maybe like lift and shift some of your, maybe your Spring Boot or your REST these other different types of applications, and then you can get it to a approach. And I've seen other frameworks do this. Interesting approach, because like for him, he was saying, he's like, hey, it solves a business, it solves out apart, make it more lightweight, making it more, more. So let me see here. Development tools and frameworks. AWS does create their own framework called SAM Serverless Application Model, and these tools are just tools to help you deploy your Lambda applications. Right? They're not there to actually help you develop it. It's more of, they just help you get your applications and deploy the Zachary. And I think that's one of the great things about or very exciting about the serverless world right now is that, and especially when it comes to Lambda and stuff, is that, and in fact, I would say is tools or applications. I would add another one, although it's different things, it definitely helps you also develop and deploy some of your Lambda applications, right? So like I said, serverless framework, one of the reasons I like to use it is it's widely used among serverless developers. It has a rich plugin ecosystem. There's a lot of plugins out there that you can use within the serverless framework to make it easier to develop your application. And then they also have this concept called components, which again is just making it, you can build those building blocks for building your server. Like you can have a web component for maybe deploying your front end part, and then you have the back end component for developing the Lambda pieces, and then maybe you have it just starts to break everything up into the different pieces. And then the pro offering, you can go to a command line and just spin up a AWS Lambda project using whatever language of your choice, whether you want to do it, like I said, because you can do Java 11 and Java 8, you can use on as far as the JVM, you can use Kotlin if you want. You can use Groovy. It's quickly just spin up a project. And this is what it would look like, right? You just go to your command line and then just give it a couple of parameters and it spins up your project, right? But there are some bad use cases for it, right? I'm not saying that Lambda is the end all be all for your computing needs, right? If you have long running processes, I would say don't use Lambda, right? Because Lambda does come with limitations, and it's just not great for running long process, high availability, like low latency type of application. Lambda might not be the best use case for you. And of course, if you have your current monolithic applications are also bad use cases. But that is, I believe, a soft limit. It's not a hard limit. So you can open up a service ticket with AWS app, but you can do that if you need to. You also have anywhere from 128 megabytes to 308 megabytes, 3008 megabytes, which is 3 gigs. So you can go from 128 megabytes to 3 gigs as far as the amount of memory that you allocate per function. Remember, I was talking earlier off. it's not a great use case for that. So that's definitely one of the limitations. You also have some limitations when it comes to the amount of data that you can send in your payload. For synchronous, you have 6 MB, and then for asynchronous, you have 256 kilobytes. And then your deployment package. So this is another thing, right? Especially in season, before you know it, your jar file has gotten pretty big. So just keep that in mind. You have a 50 MB zip file and a 250 MB unzip file limit on which you can upload for your deployment packages. And then things that you need to be aware of, right? That penalty that I was talking about earlier, right? The first time you hit it, the cold starts. Cold starts can be a big issue, although as you go along, and if it's an application that's widely used and it's always, it's being hit every so many minutes, cold starts really aren't that big of an issue. A lot of people tend to worry about that. I don't think it's that big of an issue. Beware, again, long-running processes. And then one of the most interesting ones is beware of relational databases. I'm not saying you can't use relational databases. I'm just saying be careful when you use relational databases, because if you have 1,000 concurrent Lambda functions running and each one of them is making a call to your database, you'll you'll bring down your relational databases because you'll have like excess connections to it. And to use something like DynamoDB or one of their other, I think they have like DocumentDB and so forth. AWS does have a service that the ones like Postgres and SQL Server and so forth. Definitely don't. One of the things that discourages using the function to function. Again, for me myself, it's not a big concern, but it's something that you definitely should definitely think about and see what your tolerance for that is. But I think, in my opinion, it's definitely worth it, right? So what would serverless web architecture look like? I just pulled up this diagram, what calls the Dynamo here in a minute. And then just another sample architecture, what an IoT architecture would look like in AWS, right? So let's go ahead and go to some demos, and hopefully the demo guides are good, and we can show this stuff. Billy, how are we looking on the, are you still seeing my slides, or can I?
Sorry, what was the question? Sorry, the audio is very weird.
Oh, no, it's okay. Are you still seeing the slides, or can I, because I have my command line open, and this is the part where I'm showing the demo part.
Yeah, we should be good on time. So yeah, definitely, go through if you can.
Okay,
so, yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So again, I generated a just a quick using the serverless framework. I generated a Java project, and I just went through and I wanted to do right, because everybody when they're trying to when somebody's trying to learn something, is what do we always do, right? We do a hello world. What would a hello world look like in the Lambda, right? And we can possibly take in some inputs if we wanted to. I'm not going to pass anything into it, but you can see that my POM's pretty lightweight. I'm not pulling in a ton of dependencies. I'm making it pretty lightweight. This is something that the serverless framework generates for me, right? One thing that I'll go through this real quick, but I'll go through it a little bit more in detail for the next demo that I have. Providers like Azure, and I think it does also work with IBM OpenWhisk. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it does. And what you want your runtime to be, what the package you want, and I'll show you in the other demo. The other one's a little bit more involved. But if I was to let's do here, I come to my command line. You wanted to call that function, and I could just go in here, and I notice how it's taking a while because it's having to, that cold start feature, right? So it was there wasn't a function available, and so it had to spin it up, do its thing. But then after that, it should be, it should be pretty fast, right? You can, at that point, you can start to use it and so forth there. Now, with that being said, I'll switch over and I made a taco application because I love tacos, and I made a CRUD app, right, where I have well, on this one I just did the create, get, and the delete part. I didn't do an update, but and I hooked that into a DynamoDB table, and I made it. I'm using API gateway, and I'm making calls to it through the API gateway, and I'll show you that, right? So let's just take a look at the get taco handler, right? This is a handler that goes out and this grabs all my tacos, right? And so I'm getting, again, I'm using that request handler, and I'm saying like what I might be expecting, and then what the response is, which is this object that I have, the API gateway response, which just basically just turns it into that JSON and so forth. And then it goes out to this part's actually going to DynamoDB and so forth, right? So let's look at the serverless YAML for this particular demo. This to do things like the stages, right? Like what stage I want to develop to, right? I'm doing this in dev. What region I want to go to, what IAM rows I want to give my functions. I can start to say, some environment variables like the name of my taco table, and like the type of event that I'm expecting, right? It's an event. This is the path, and you will see here in a minute when I call it the curl. But this is the path to get to what I'm trying to get to. The method, right, is to get. And then I added some cores implementation because I am going to be calling this from so forth. I call it from here. It's I can list out my resource, my DynamoDB table. My DynamoDB table, I just use some very like my read and write capacity for these. These are terms that pertain to DynamoDB. I just keep them all pretty simple. I made them a 1-1, but you can increase that as you need for your needs. But the serverless framework makes it pretty easy for me to just kind of package that up. All I have to do is like build it and then do an SLS deploy, and it pushes it out, right? So you didn't see that step on the previous one, but I kind of cheated. I forgot to say that. I'm kind of like, like when you do your cooking shows and you do your cooking shows and you've already, like they're doing the cooking show and they put everything together, and then they say, oh, hey, by the way, I already did this, this pre-baked cake that I already had, and this is what it looks like afterwards. This is kind of what I did. I went ahead and I pushed everything to make API calls to it. And let's see here if I can do this. I am going to use the first one to go ahead and grab my tacos, and I'm going to do a curl command. And this one's going to take a while, right? It's the first one that's being hit. This isn't up and running, and it's, it took a while. It took it took about 5 seconds, right? But there's my list of my response, my tacos. I got a bean and cheese. My buddy Gangsta's got an ID. Nothing super serious, right? But if I go back through and I was to hit it again, this time it's pretty fast. I mean, it was like super fast. Have to go through it all over again, right? New type of taco in here, and let me edit this real quick over here on the side. But I want a kind of taco do I like? Beef fajita taco. Post it again. It's going to take a while because it's a cold start. It's a beef fajita with the price of $4.50, right? And we can also let's just do it and do a delete, right? Do a delete, but after that it'll be pretty fast. And it completed. Everything is fine. So that's a RESTful API. But I also went ahead and I was like, hey, I want to see what it would look like if I could I do the, that idea I told you I had at first with the, if I deployed it to last month, I think it was Micah from Okta, and he did a Vue.js application. Well, I do Vue.js at my day job as well, and I just spun up a quick, Vue.js application, and there we go, right? So this is Vue.js running on S3, and I have the Vue.js taco app, and those are all the 3 tacos that you saw earlier that I was doing in the curl command. But now it was pretty fast, right? Because those instances are started up, right? But if I wanted to add a new taco, I could just go in here and say alpha store taco, and let's go ahead and delete that one. And yeah, that's pretty sweet. And I think this opens up the ability to do all kinds of cool stuff. I'm sure you guys have started hearing developers doing something like Jamstack. I think that's starting to catch on, to do web applications and applications hacking your AWS Lambdas. But like I said, there's several use cases. I do want to dive back on that, but it's something that anything else. Like I said, thank you. If you have any questions or comments, send them to on the
I'll
YouTube
get that
channel
out there.
Yeah. And if you guys can send me feedback, I'd be interested. I definitely just want to recommend, if you guys have an opportunity, there's a great book out there called Programming AWS Lambda, and it's all the examples are actually in Java. It's a great book. I don't get anything for it, but it's by a guy named Mike Roberts and John Chapin. And it's been a great resource for me as well, as I'm trying to learn developing Lambda with Java in a serverless world. So that's it for me. Like I said, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. Thanks, Billy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm really sorry about these streaming issues. From what I can see, it looks like it's really choppy right now. I think the audio is coming in mostly fine, though. So at least that's what I've been seeing. But sorry about that. I did have one question. I don't know if you quite covered it. Unfortunately, the audio on my side is really, really bad. But luckily, I think it's fine for the stream. Can you give it like a custom Docker image if you wanted to?
Yes.
Okay.
You can definitely do that. I think that's what that AWS serverless.
Okay, great. Down it. Like as a note, like are you able to pull from like a private container repository? Does it have to be on Docker Hub? I've found that it has to be the case with the OpenWhisk.
Yeah, I haven't done it. It'd be a great exercise to do that, the serverless Java container one. I haven't done it.
Cool.
But I would look at that project. I can send you a link to it.
Great. Yeah,
guy, like I said, it's the guy who created that project is like the AWS Java guy. His name's Stefano. Those things where like people like, I'm sure you know this, especially with the stuff that you do, but you have a purist way of doing things, right? Like everybody